Ciao Juventini, and welcome to episode 95 of the All JuveCast. I've got a great guest with me joining me today. Unfortunately, we are going to recap the Coppa Italia Final versus Napoli that finished 0-0, and obviously Juve dropping it after the penalty kicks. But before we get into that, which is gonna open up. The floodgates will open on this episode, and we will let fly with our opinions. But my very special guest, Mustafa, how are you doing, my friend?
Alberto, how are you? It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you for welcoming me again on your wonderful podcast, which was one of the best actually in our Twitter world. And I'm very happy to be with you. And as always, I'm going to be as honest as I can be within the boundaries of
You betcha.
politeness.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Appreciate the kind words. And before we get into it, everybody knows you did during the quarantine period, and this pandemic, we did do a flashback, a classic rewind on a very, very special match to us with Real Madrid in that second leg back in Torino. But this is now back into our bread and butter at the All JuveCast, which is the post-match podcast. And tradition is, since this is technically the first of the match recaps for you, would love to hear your story on how you became a Juventino.
Sure, I'm sure you're tired of that story because I said it many times. No. As I told you last time, my story started back in the old days. So that was in 1997. So I was still getting familiar with football, and Italian football at the time was really big. I'm originally from North Africa, from Egypt. So in the Mediterranean basin in general, Italian football was really always very, very popular. And so I was watching the final between the Juventus and Dortmund. All Juve fans remember that final. I came to know later on that we were the overwhelming favorite to win. But at the time, I saw a team losing 2-0, and I'm not a very big fan of the Germans in general. So I found myself inclined to support Juve. Just in that game, in the events of the game, we were kind of the underdog because we were down, and I remember Del Piero was also coming back from an injury. And actually it started with Del Piero in a way because I had an elder cousin who was a huge fan of Del Piero, and he was telling me you have to watch Juve, you have to watch Del Piero. So I was waiting for that guy, I was hearing about him the whole time. And then he comes in the second half, he scores a world-class goal, and then I get some hope, that, okay, we're going to do this. But then Lars Rekin scores the third goal like a couple of minutes after that. Just bad memories. But anyway, so my story basically with the club started in that game. I found myself supporting the club, and then later on, my first full season, if you want to say that I was really aware of the team and supporting the team, was the 97-98 famous Scudetto that we won when the Inter game, the very famous controversial Inter game, with the penalty of Giuliano and Ronaldo. So that was basically the beginning. So 97-98. So more than 22 years now.
That's awesome. I know you and I had, had a laugh just discussing it and whatnot, because how fitting that, it all begins with the Champions League loss. Unfortunately. What was to come, unfortunately.
I've seen 5 ever since.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing. And I remember the late 90s, that squad, unbelievable. It rolled into the 2000s, and 03, obviously. Nedved's card we talked about on our classic rewind. There's no doubt in my mind if he's in that lineup, we win that one. I think that one was incredible. Zidane kind of getting marked out of his finals with us and not being able to deliver was always disappointing. And it's shocking that those clubs, how strong they were, couldn't get us a couple more of those European glory.
On paper you win all 3 finals. On paper you win all 3, but football doesn't believe in paper; it believes on the pitch. And again, the usual bad luck, final mentality. I don't know, really. It's becoming sort of a myth. I mean, why we always have the same situation? I mean, even you can go back to 1973, our first final against Ajax, and then Hamburg in the 80s when you had a team full of World Cup winners, and it was a great team of that 83, and then you lost against a weaker opponent. And so, anyway, we love the old lady. We will always love the old ladies.
Let's get to where the love gets tested, the Coppa Italia Final. So let's just take it from the top. We'll go through the game, and then I'm sure, as I said, the floodgates will open here. We're coming off a very, very underwhelming performance against Milan. Again, just 0-0. We get by on the away goal, gets us into this final. And everybody was saying it because you had Merda and Napoli on the other side, and both teams looked better than the performance that we put out against Milan. When you watch that Napoli and Merda match to get into this final, both of them looked better. We knew if Juve wanted to do this, they had to be a hell of a lot sharper and better than they were against Milan. The starting lineups come out. We had Buffon in goal. You had Quadrado, Bonucci, De Ligt, Sandro across the back. In the middle, Bentancur as Mezzala with Pjanic back in his regista role and Matuidi in the middle. Costa, Dybala, Ronaldo up front. Now, when you got those lineups, how did you feel about that lineup, seeing it?
I mean, wasn't a big change since the semi-final. Basically, it's just the introduction of Quadrado, and obviously, but it was pretty much almost the same starting lineup. I think Sarri wanted again to test this combination because I think the forward line is really kind of automatically selected with the Higuain not in the picture, and the other. I mean, it's incredible the lack of depth that we are having now. We'll get to that later. I mean, there's really so much to say, but I mean, really, the forward line is kind of automatically selected. But then you always have the question in the midfield. So I think he wanted to test again the whole Bentancur Pjanic combination, which it's just still struggling to find its feet on the pitch. And although I think Pjanic was, anyway, we'll get to the ratings later, but I think he did a bit better than Milan game, but still not really his level, but still not. And then obviously the back line. I mean, you have the introduction of Quadrado. I was expecting more, to be honest. I mean, also because, especially going forward, because Quadrado has a more of an attacking kind of, approach, mentality to his game, and very unpredictable. But yeah, so that was basically my first impression. There wasn't a big difference from the Milan game. I mean, it just was pretty much that's it.
The thing that stood out to me looking at that lineup is I said, this is where actually, to be honest, my frustration began. My frustration began is because you had Pjanic again listed where he's been failing. You have Quadrado in as right back. And again, I look at this lineup, I understand it, but I've got some concerns with Pjanic being there, Quadrado already out there. And the reason is because then through my mind, I think about our bench already. Yeah. And with this lineup, I said, we have to get it done because we literally have maybe one substitution that could actually make an impact based on what they've been given us. And that's probably Aaron Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey I saw as the only guy on the bench that could probably make an impact should we need him.
Who's returning from an injury as well.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing, right? It's just, I don't know what to do. And the thing with me is I even said it, and I thought, if Ramsey's fit, even if he's come back from an injury, for me, he starts next to Bentancur. Bentancur's reduced, Ramsey in, start the match, because we talk about these things. You come back from injury, doing that. At the end of the day, like quality is quality on the pitch. And
That's true.
when Ramsey made that move to Metsala, he was miles ahead of the other guys at that spot. And Bentancur has been ahead of Mira for quite some time at that regista role. So I think let's go there at right back. I thought Danilo did a great job against Milan, and I thought let's go there. Let's keep Quadrado to maybe
As a bench option, yeah.
yeah, as a bench option, but introduce him maybe a little sooner if we have to as another attacking option. Because it's crazy, and the frustration started there because you start thinking about it, and depth was a big topic for me in the lead up to the return of this season with a condensed schedule and stuff. And I go, I don't see what a lot of Juventini are talking about with depth. We we seem to act as if we're missing out on a lot of players. We're just missing Higuain. But this
That is
team
true.
is like there is nothing. There is nobody behind Sandro. There's nobody behind Higuain essentially. Um, and the way we played against Milan, just fundamentally, tactically, was just shocking. But yeah, this is where I started to get a little frustrated. But we get into the match, and obviously we're all optimistic and stuff. And I put out a Twitter poll, and I said, "Hey, Juventini, are we taking this Coppa Italia? How do we feel?" 87%, it's a win. You know, so the confidence was up there amongst the fan base. You know, uh, yeah, it's tough to picture Juve just not getting it done. We've
I
been that club
think
that will find a way, and
remember,
into
we
that.
spoke about that, remember, about finding a way. But I think also the optimism was also because of the psychological kind of edge that we had over Napoli, more experience in finals, domestic finals, obviously. And yeah, just the mental edge. And we always have a belief, as we were talking last time, that we find a way. We find a way to get the win. And I think that's partly why. But I share with you many of your frustrations. I mean, I completely agree with you. I think, again, we're talking about a very conservative coach who would not take risk putting somebody who just came back from injury and who will not take risk, for example, as you say, introducing Ramsey. Ramsey's fit, introducing from the beginning. It's his style. I mean, we will get to him in the
Yeah.
end more, but I mean, so I was not really surprised per se that Ramsey, while fit, was not included in the starting lineup.
Okay.
I like you. I mean, I'm now what I was saying about Pjanic. I think, I mean, he was the better was ball recovery. However, he was still poor. I mean, not because Milan, he was really a ghost in the Milan game. But so,
Yeah.
but still, and we will get to that. Obviously, I mean, I know you want to do the game first, but there's so much that we can say
Oh
about
yeah.
that.
It's gonna open up, and the thing is too is that I've seen it out there. I've seen the rants. I've seen the emotions. I've seen the Juventini explode, and we're about a day separated from the match, which I think is best to actually just we're gonna harness in on all our feelings, thoughts, and emotions. It might still turn into a rant at some point,
Could
which
be.
is totally fine. But let's get to the match itself. Match begins. You know, we're about 5 minutes in, and Dybala steals the ball. He turns it into Ronaldo. Ronaldo takes a shot, tries to curl it far post. Nice save by Merritt there, but a little bit promising. We're on the front foot. Get that steal of possession. Get the shot. I like it. 15th minute. We're about 15 minutes in, and I'm not sure why, but it's very, very slow. We're very, very slow getting into position. We are dominating the possession at that point, but we're just slow getting into position. We're not really switching the field. It's just something I noticed instantly. I was like, we're not really switching the field. We, when we were, the forwards were completely lost. So I started to see um, a lot of Alexandro getting the ball on the left with nobody ahead of him other than Blaise Matuidi. And the forwards were still on the far side, and nobody was really rushing to get in there to make that run, to be available or whatnot. And I saw it vice versa, going to the right side of the pitch, where Cuadrado would then get it. And again, we had just shift from the left side, but it's just, to me, again, that falls into that positional, tactical, fundamental stuff where it has to make sense. And right now, our game on the pitch does not make sense. You could see from the get-go, Napoli was going to be compact. They were going to be compact, and they were going to force us to make something happen to try and break them down. But it didn't take long for me to see how slow and predictable we got there. 19th minute, Bentancur gets an opportunity from Ronaldo cutting in, but the shot's right at him. 24th minute, Napoli gets a free kick. Insignia goes off the outside of the post, but Gigi, I felt, was going to be there anyways. He was kind of all over that.
I think it touches the tip of his hand. I think maybe like a tip. He took a tip of his hand.
Yeah. And looking at it again, 24th minute after Insigne, there were just I don't know. I got this feeling from us. Actually, it was the lack of feeling. It was a very, very strange performance because I didn't feel that intensity coming through in the play. I didn't get an urgency. I didn't get anything of that. I saw, a couple players that maybe had it, but it looked really, really frustrating. We're only talking about 24 minutes into this match, 27th minute, nice ball over the top. Dybala just couldn't settle it. Bonucci actually played a very, very nice ball over the top. Dybala had Koulibaly on his back. Just couldn't settle it. But promising. But at the same time, why like Bonucci's making these balls and looking for these passes, right? And there were opportunities. I saw Sandro actually getting advanced, putting his arm up, and our guys, the guys that should be looking for him, not seeing it and not splashing that ball around. Because when Napoli got compact like that, when we come around from one side, he was noticing that and he was trying to make that run. He had his arm up and he's looking for it, and nobody's even looking. That's the part that's frustrating. Our mids, like, nobody was even looking for him. And what ended up happening is we went across the line, and by the time we got to a position where a guy felt comfortable making that pass, Napoli was easy to get in front of position, and Sandro lost all that space that he could have advanced with. I just saw a team that is unwilling to take risks, even in passing. And you have to take those opportunities, especially when a team is going to sit back on you. Because if you think you're going to walk through a compact team like that, it's just not going to happen. The passing need to be quicker. You need to separate positions. Like, you need to just carve it out, to get that space. Essentially, you're just trying to gain space when a team's compact like that. And we weren't willing to do that. We were very, very safe in the passing. You don't see a lot of one-touch passing where the pass is coming. You should already know that guy's there. Give it to him on the fly, like one touch. But we always take that extra touch. It gives them that extra time to set up and then pass. And it's very, very safe. Very, very predictable. We're about half hour in, and that's what I was feeling. What were you feeling about half hour in watching?
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming painful. I mean, I cannot believe I'm saying it, but becoming painful to watch you. Really. I mean, I'm not only our build-up is slow and predictable and one-dimensional, but it's actually lacking any direction or substance. It's just like, I remember when Sarri came in and people were talking about this position football, that we have position, passing. But what I'm seeing is, as you are saying, exactly, just safe, meaningful passes, no direct play whatsoever. We're just going sideways and backwards. a complete lack of direction, really. For I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I mean, I had the same. I mean, I will go to. I will get more in detail into these bigger issues, but as I mean, as you are saying, really, it is becoming pathetic. I mean, and just when I'm watching the game, and we are not even trying to pass the ball. We are not even trying to be unpredictable. It is incredibly a one-dimensional game where you do not feel that we are even trying to surprise the opponent. All the opponent has to do really is just to sit back, put their guys well, defend well, and this is what they because Juve has become such a one-dimensional, predictable team that it is amazing. Like we were talking about that in the Milan game. The only guy who seems to be trying to pass to do something that is a little bit creative, out of the box, unpredictable has been Tancourt in the midfield. The only one. Same goes for the forwards. Like in the case of the game, Costa and Ronaldo. I think we will come to Ronaldo with more detail later on, but their game is becoming extremely one-dimensional. Their movement, the way they are approaching the goal, the way they are passing the ball, it is just like I mean, you can read the play from your own couch watching the game on TV. Well, like this is the thing. Seriously, it is just it's an unbelievably frustrating situation. And I share, I mean, I can talk a lot about that because it links to many things. But I mean, like you, I mean, this game was really painful to watch because
Yeah.
there was zero reaction, and there was zero reaction. Like, I mean, you were talking about half an hour into the first half. It's the same story for the 90 minutes. I was expecting, some sort of a reaction in the second half. We will come later to the second half, but it was just a continuation of the same. So zero creation, zero attempts. You feel that there is no hunger. For the first time in my life, I'm seeing a Juventus team in a final of a tournament that there is zero hunger. Like they don't want anything from the game, as if you are exactly playing a preseason friendly. This is the same feeling. So yeah, I mean, we will talk about a lot about that, but I mean, this is my impression for the first 30 minutes or for the first half. Really, we're just
And we're right on par with each other. The exact same feelings.
it's the same thought. The same thought. There's
Yeah.
nothing to say really.
As we get going, 38th minute, there was a good opportunity. Dybala just missed slipping it through to set Ronaldo all alone. Merritt comes out, and but again, it's so few and far between that we get into these scenarios.
And it's not a product of play; it's a product of individual moments of creativity and brilliance. Like it's not exactly. It's not like a tactic or a strategy that you see happening on the pitch.
Exactly, because this particular moment, as a couple others of those opportunities, came actually based off turnovers. And the part that surprised me is that we didn't do that. And naturally, if you start thinking about this through matches, the ones that we tend to do better in with Sarri were the ones where our press was a little more involved. And in this match, really our best moments or opportunities came from turnovers, but we were not consistent and we didn't want to press and we didn't press. But the times we did, we caused turnovers and we were able to turn it around less because you have an advantage numerically against your opponent when you win those turnovers. But we were unwilling to really step that up. And that was something I saw. I was like, okay, we've got a couple opportunities now off these turnovers. Let's start to clamp down. Let's start to, again, it's another form of taking a risk. Yes, you're gonna open yourself up a bit for them to come back, but you know what? You could tell right out of the gate, De Ligt was on one. He was on, and he was strong. And I was like,
and he wanted it. He wanted it.
And Bonucci, at least he's got the experience. Let's go for it. Let's try and force those turnovers. Let's try and take it to them. At least if you could find a goal, and then maybe calm down on the press if you have to try to control the match, whatnot. But I mean, for me, we're at our best when we're trying to get that, and to not even attempt to do it more when you see that it's already caused them in the few instances some issues.
Mind-boggling.
Let's try to do it a little more. But again, we continue. For 40th minute, a big save by Gigi Buffon. Huge save on Demi there, and I mean, incredible. And you see his reaction immediately, and I think like here's a guy in his 40s, coming back, seeing the season out, and you know why does that not like resonate amongst a lot of guys? Because we talked about how flat feeling it was, and yet you see this guy who's been through it all, who's done it all, and he continues, and he still carries himself the same way, and he's got that. Delict had that in that match, but I was disappointed to not see it through a lot of the guys. Ronaldo's one of them. I didn't get that feeling, he looked frustrated before that match even began. As they show the players getting ready and going on the pitch, like I'm like, he just, something looks like it's bothering him. Dybala looked not himself, not what we've used to this particular season. He's been strong-willed and driven, and he looked flat. And again, I don't know if this is coming back from this pandemic, but that's not an excuse, because it's your job. You're a part of Juventus. Juventus is all about winning. That drive, that hunger needs to be there. And whether you take a break, it's like saying us in our jobs, we have expectations that we are to meet. When I go on vacation and I come back, it's not like all of a sudden, it may be a little bit harder to get back in the rhythm, but ultimately your expectations don't change, and I'm still like driven to do what I need to do. It might be a little harder to get there or whatnot, but ultimately you got to do it. And it's frustrating to see these guys almost sleepwalk. Like it was just like, what's going on here? You have 2 guys out of 11 and possibly 3 guys out of the 11 that look like they actually want this trophy. It's frustrating. Dybala, we talk about this with Buffon. At the end of the half, he goes down so easy in the area. He gets in the area. He could probably take these guys on, but he chooses to go down very, very easily and look for the call in there. And that's just frustrating to see. I mean, he should be stronger. We saw a lot of that against Milan. Juve players going down very easily. Bernardeschi, Dybala did it a couple times and just throw their hands up and complain. And it's just frustrating. We end the half there. Nothing changes from the 30th minute that we talked to the end of the half. Poor positionally, no creativity, no ideas, and just very slow and predictable. But what are your thoughts just on what I was touching on with that feeling, that sense of, them really caring and wanting this thing? I only saw it out of maybe 3.
I would say at best, actually. I mean, you talk about Buffon, which is, I think Buffon is a link to a time where we all kind of long for, sort of a nostalgia of a different kind of football or a different kind of mentality, especially when it comes to Juventus. And it's incredibly ironic that the player who wanted it the most is the player who won the most, aside from Ronaldo on the pitch. I mean, like, and if somebody who will have, kind of enough, or, just doesn't have the hunger anymore, it is somebody who won it all. So aside from Cristiano, obviously, Gigi is the one who is, as you said, the most decorated, but as you could see on the pitch, he was, I mean, you kind of wonder. I mean, you remember we had this discussion, I think, last summer when were some Juventus fans were very much objecting Buffon and calling him a clown that he wanted to return. A clown, calling Buffon a clown. I still remember it. I wonder how these people feel after that game, and after what they're seeing now, because I personally, for one, I appreciate every time I see this man on the pitch, because it is a reminder of the football that I know no longer exists. So it's like, it's a mentality, a spirit, a heart that's really lacking in today's football. And when now everything is, we'll touch on that later on, but everything obviously is about commercialism and about other things that are really not football related. But back to the topic, obviously, like you, I was expecting really a reaction after they saw this guy who is just, doing things that only he could do, actually. I was expecting a reaction that they are. I didn't see hunger, Alberto. This is the problem. I mean, it was like watching people, like watching people without any players without any spirit whatsoever.
Yeah.
Nobody really. I mean, as you are saying, I mean, De Ligt is the only one who you feel that he wanted it. You feel that he was on pressing, pushing, attacking the defenders, covering very well his attackers. You felt that this is somebody who is hungry, that somebody who has this kind of spirit and has this kind of flame. You would expect somebody like Dybala to have it. You would expect at least one of the midfielders to have it. You would expect Cristiano, since Cristiano is a serial winner, and he's always, he has this hunger, which is incredible that somebody like him who won all that, he still has this kind of hunger to win and to score and so on. But all that was missing. All that was missing, and but again, it's. Remember, we touched on that the last podcast, the one that was not recorded, about this idea of this lack of identity, lack of playing identity that we've been having. Because, yeah, the players don't do their jobs. However, the players at the same time, you feel that these are, again, they're lost on the pitch. There is no strategy. We don't have an identity. We don't have a football identity. I really struggle to understand what we are doing. Are we playing position football? Are we playing counter-attack? Are we playing, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing on the pitch? Positioning-wise, strategy-wise, tactically, build up from the back line to the midfield. Again, as you said, the players are to blame for this lack of hunger, but at the same time, I feel it's the bigger issue, because it's the bigger issue that links to many other things that are beyond this game that we will touch upon in the end. And at the same time, but I agree with you completely that there is a lack of heart. There is a lack of heart, but then it is a problem that we have been witnessing for years now, and it's not something that is new. The hunger, as you said, Juventus is all about winning, and it's really this winning mentality. It's either you get it, as you say, you drink this winning mentality, or you adopt it, or you don't. This has always been like that. We have had great players who passed by Juventus since I became like the last 20, 25 years. But many of them did not succeed in Juventus. They succeeded in other clubs and in other situations because they didn't get this idea that when you play for these colors, when you play for this club, winning is the only thing that matters, and giving your heart out on the pitch is more important than anything. It's more important than doing a nice dummy. It's more important than scoring many goals. The fans of this club need to see you as a player that you are giving your all. You are leaving it all on the pitch. How many times have we seen that this year? How many times have we seen that we played to our maximum potential, that we kept on pressing, that we kept on trying to, as you were saying, we had this upper hand pressing on the fuel. If you want to have an allegory with a car, when you're pressing, you're not just waiting. It is incredibly passive. Our game is incredibly passive and lacking any kind of direction. But obviously, again, the players are affected by that. And at the same time, you also have to question, are these the players who should represent these colors? Are these the players who are really have the heart and have the spirit and the mentality to represent this club? This is a big question mark and an open question. I'm sure we all have our different interpretations, but this is another problem. I mean, again, we will get into coaching and tactics and direction.
I really like that question, and we are definitely going to get into it because I'm going to have a question that I want to ask you in return to that. Let's wrap up that second half because this is going to be really quick. This second half, I wanted, you're hoping for something, but again, going back to what I was saying at the beginning, lack of an impact from the bench. I was not hopeful, unfortunately. Like it is like it's sad for me to say that. I thought, it would have to be the same guys. I wasn't expecting a lot for changes, anything. I was just hoping that maybe Sarri could see that the opportunities we did gain were from causing turnovers, and maybe we could work through that. This second half was a sleeper. It was a sleeper. The 53rd minute, we got into a good opportunity. Bentancur with a shot that just sailed. Like I know he was on his bad foot, but I'm thinking there in that opportunity, like Ronaldo had drawn in a couple defenders. He slipped it to you. You're a ways out. You're going to try and take this with your off foot. Drive that ball in there, Bentancur. Drive at that one defender who's almost flat-footed looking at you, because Ronaldo just took a bunch of guys out. Like you're just at the top of the area. Maybe you get a PK. Maybe you get a really good free kick in that area. Like just drive that ball. And he's so good at it too. And here we go again with just maybe a lack of confidence. I don't know, right? But it just plays into everything, and you're seeing these opportunities, and but again, we just continue the same as we saw in the first half. Very slow, very predictable. 66th minute, and again, going back to Sandro going down, which looked pretty bad, but he stayed in. He stayed in, continued playing. 66th minute, Danilo comes in for Costa. They move Cuadrado up. Maybe this will help us. Douglas Costa, I was not impressed with in this match. Just really nothing. Meaningless possession, meaningless passes, no flair to it. But it wasn't just him, it was everything. And collectively, you can tell it is broken. They are not a unit. They're not even close to a unit. There's nothing there. I think defensively, our back line is a unit, and you could see.
Just an anecdote. When you are unable to single anyone that did good, whose responsibility is that?
Your managers.
Continue.
71st minute, Milik actually going top corner. Very good opportunity. He misses. 74th minute, Bernardeschi comes in for Miralem Pjanic, who, to me, again, was he better? Yes, but the bar that he has set was so low that I should hope that he had been better. It was nothing there. 85th,
nothing.
Ramsey ends up coming in for Cuadrado, and that's really just too late. It just makes him a kicker in the kicks. Doesn't do anything, but we literally only get 2C penalties again because of Gigi Buffon making an absolute just ridiculous corner kick, stops a great header going low and hard, gets down there, stops it, and then scrambles to get an arm in front of the rebound, which is point blank. He's unbelievable. And what the fuck was Bernardeschi doing to give that corner up? He's got the ball on our goal line.
Sturaro 2.0.
And he drops the ball back to cross it. He puts it over the line for the corner, and I'm like, good God, man, I know your right foot is not your strong foot, but at least go that way because it's a sideline. Like, just, you gotta be sharper than that. This is a professional footballer, for God's sakes.
Playing for one of the biggest teams in the world.
That is unacceptable. Should we have lost on that play? Should Buffon not have bailed him out? My God.
He would have been crucified rightfully. He would have been crucified rightfully. I mean,
It's unbelievable. And this is what gets me back to the whole thing with depth and me not seeing it based on what we get out of the guys we consider depth. Juventini that say, I'm saying you are looking on paper. You are looking on paper, looking at the names and saying, just because you don't recognize the names on these other clubs' benches, Lazio or whatnot, you may not recognize those players' names, but I guarantee you that team, and we know they do, they have their system set up. They know how to play. And I guarantee you, you'll get more out of their guys on the bench because they understand their roles. We do not even know our best 11. We have no set formation. We have no set rotation. It's too scattered. The forwards, our three forwards, they just rotate and they go wherever they seem to want to go. And that's why we get into situations where you get the ball out on a flank and there is nobody around. There's just a massive gap from the flank to our forward line because they are doing whatever they want.
Lost. They're lost.
It is lost, but Buffon bails out Bernardeschi. We go into penalty kicks. And penalty kicks are penalty kicks. It's a free for all. Anything could
There's
go
been a
wrong.
lot of conspiracy theories about those penalty kicks, but
Yeah. Dybala comes in, he gets saved. Insigne comes up, he scores. Danilo for the second kicker. Now, that one surprised me. Out of the guys you have there, I definitely did not see Danilo as being one of the guys that would kick.
it's a very strange choice, I have to say. But we don't know the circumstances. We don't know the circumstances.
Exactly right. Danilo, he misses. He goes, why? Not even a run up. Literally 2 steps, kicks it.
He looked afraid when he was shooting the ball. Actually, I mean, you could feel that this is somebody who's not sure. I mean, like he stopped a little bit, for like a couple of seconds before he decided to go in, and then he. But I'm not going to blame him, man, because I mean, I salute him that he took the initiative. Man. I mean, in the end of the day, I'm not going to blame him.
Yeah. Politano comes up, he scores 2-0 Napoli in kicks. Bonucci comes up. What a hell of a PK, let me tell you. Bonucci, wow. Maximovic comes up, scores 3-1. Ramsey comes up, great spot kick. Great.
Very, very good technique as well.
Milic comes up, he ends it.
Okay.
That's it. That's it, and that's where we go. And obviously losing sucks, and this is where all the reactions cut in, and we lose our minds, and we get frustrated, and
sometimes you learn more from losses than wins. Huh?
Yeah, but I think the frustration is because we aren't learning, and as fans, you could see it. You could see it on the pitch that we're not learning. There's nothing changing. We're not taking these lessons. Everyone was talking about lesson learned.
Lesson learned.
It's not.
Losing is part of the game, but losing this way, that's another conversation and another feeling.
It's. I'd be happy if we saw the Juve we're accustomed to, with the grit, with structure, with balance, with playing with that desire and actually giving it everything. And we talked about it. It's that feeling that they are not interested, they are uninterested, that lack of desire, lack of passion to even care about the shirt they're wearing. When that starts to come through, it's hard to take these losses, and it's hard not to criticize everyone involved. And really, some fans say, you're a negative fan, or, you're not being positive and stuff. It's very hard right now to take a positive out of something you've seen coming for a long time. And this is the thing that we're going to get into now, because it's going to get crazy. But we have not gone 2 consecutive matches without a goal for 5 seasons.
Wow.
It's 5 years since you've
I didn't know that. Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So 5 years since Juventus has gone 2 consecutive games without getting 1 goal. Okay. And the thing that gets me, is immediately after this thing, it turns into this Allegri versus Sarri situation where Allegri would have won that. Now, the thing with me, I'm going to lay out here right away that gets me really fired up about this whole thing is it's pointless to bring up the
Yeah.
Allegri versus Sarri thing. And the reason is because Allegri's hands are not clean in all of this and where we are right now. He is a part of why we are in the situation we are now because, you know, you may want to look at it as he got whatever he got out of those midfields and stuff like that. But this decline didn't just happen like that the second that he left. This decline goes back 2 seasons. Okay.
At the very least, at the very least. Yeah.
At the very least, this decline goes back 2 seasons. Okay. Allegri has his hands in that. Having a big core of the group still from those days, I always said it from day one. I go, Sarri is going to have a hell of a time trying to get the mentality to match the play, the style of play that he's asking for, because you've had guys playing a completely different way, minds that are trained to preserve themselves, whereas Sarri's looking for that output and those results and that conversion and everything. And it's not lining up with what they're used to. I go, the mentality's got to be there. But, you know, Sarri is not doing himself any favors as he is reverting back to things that we know don't work. You know, Ronaldo up centrally, too much freedom between all these forwards and having them just mix match rather than set structural positionally. Pjanic as regista, just, I had faith that Sarri had figured that out against Merda and went with Bentancur, and we would see that and build off that. And he has not. And Sarri has created a bit of this mess on his own. And now, when you start to see players that just don't seem to care, when you're talking about a manager, a coach, someone that's supposed to be one of those leaders, has he lost the guys? Are they behind him? Because if you start to see lack of desire, lack of interest, as any type of leader, you want these guys that are ready to, run into a fire for you, and I don't think that these guys are there for Sarri. I'm not feeling it. But that part really frustrated me with turning it into Allegri. Should Allegri be there? Bring Allegri back. No, Allegri is part of this. He's got his hands in this. Management has got their hands in this. This starts at the top and goes all okay. It starts right from the top and it goes all the way down.
All the way down. And if you single only one element without singling the others, you're a hypocrite. If you are blaming the players without blaming Sarri, you're a hypocrite. If you're blaming Sarri without blaming the players, you're a hypocrite. And if you are not blaming the management of Paratici, you are a hypocrite. I mean, I agree with you. Look, I mean, just a disclaimer. I mean, I was not for Sarri's appointment, and I didn't believe that he's the best choice. But at the same time, I believe that Max's cycle came to an end, and it was the right time. It was the right time because we needed a different direction. But obviously, when you change a coach like Max, you have to be very careful about who supersedes him and who succeeds him. And who takes the helm. Obviously, there was all kinds of rumors last summer, and talking about Guardiola and all that stuff. But in the end, it was only rumors, and it seemed like they wanted to go for Sarri for whatever reason. Which is still a little bit surprising because I don't think Sarri was a successful story with Chelsea, especially when it comes to man management, which is quite important when you have a squad that has somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo, Dybala, you have players or world-class players. So obviously, man management is quite important and it's quite essential to maintain the solidarity of the team and the will and the spirit of the team. But as you are saying, it is really it's we touched on that last podcast, and I think again I always tend to think of the bigger picture and of what's happening around the club for the last couple of years. And I agree with you that let's deconstruct it because it's too much. But if look, I mean, for the squad, for example, obviously the squad for years, as you are saying, the problems are clear. The problems are evident. It is not rocket science. It is not rocket science. It is clear where we have problems. For 2 years, we have not. I mean, okay, last summer they went and they did some purchases that are now very questionable, if you want to say, aside from Ramsey, who I believe for the first year, given his injuries, was okay. Rabiot remains a big question mark, especially given the salary that he's taking. Obviously, players like Matuidi, Khedira, and again, I appreciate what they did for the club, and they are players who have done for the club. And I mean, I think, as you're saying, I think Khedira, until 2 years and a half before or anything, was a decent player. Was a decent player. It was you could rely on him until 2 or 3, and like until maybe 2017, 2018. But the guy for 2 years, not only he lost his form and he is no longer the same player. His injuries are incredible and incredibly unbelievable. Given also that this guy he earns a big salary, he doesn't earn a small salary in the end of the day. And then the problems of the midfield, we can have a one podcast about the midfield and the problems of the midfield. Really, I mean, I don't want to get so much into detail because the problem is obvious. The players are obvious. Of course, it is going to be always subjective how people view players. However, it is obvious that this is not the midfield that will take us to the promised land. The problems with the fullbacks, it's clear. We are playing a full season with one left back, and now it's biting us on the ass because now this is what's happening. Now it's biting us on the ass that we are now. Who is going to play? Di Chilio? Matuidi will play as a left back.
So for as it come out after this match, Khedira is out now for the remainder of the season. He picked up another injury. Sandro is out 3 weeks, and 3 weeks in a condensed schedule means quite a few matches. He's going to miss half of the remaining Serie A matches.
Basically. Yeah.
We essentially had Pellegrini that we could have brought in, and we chose to loan him out for whatever reason. I have no idea, but we continue to do these things. Management continues to do these things. This is nothing new. We talk about it all the time. It seems like after a Mercado, it's like, here's our pros and here's our cons. We just seem to change what position we lose coverage on. It's always something. Now, it's interesting you bring this up, Mustafa, because after this match, talking about guys he didn't have available. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? We essentially only have Higuain that is out. So, and this is the part that really bugs me. And again, this whole Allegri sorry thing, I countered it with this and I said, how on earth does a team like Juventus have an entire bench that's useless? Let's look at that right out of the gate. I go, before we want to get into coaching or anything, let's go down the line of bench players. It is useless. Okay?
Absolutely useless.
You've got Bernardeschi, useless. We should have cut ties and moved him. He should have been a guy we were pushing to have go. Instead, we wanted to push Paulo Dybala out. Khedira still lingering around, which at this point, just a body is more useful because the guy is done. He can't stay healthy. It's true. It's true.
It's true.
De Chilio has a long list of guys. It's just, and then we bring in 2 frees. Now, while I appreciate what Ramsey has brought and everything like that, that's great. Rabiot just never quite got. He was very promising in the preseason. He looked like he could be an impact guy for us, but it never panned out. But why do these free transfers have to be such massive wages? And if that's what you're going to do, maybe look at alternatives. But this,
exactly.
really, really highlights how Juventus fills spots rather than builds teams right
Squad.
now. Okay, we are no longer that club that, when we talk about the days you were just getting into Juventus, and us as supporters were still cling on to. Um, we had the Delivios, the Takinardis, we had the Sosas, we had these guys.
You had
Not,
two squads. You had two squads who could win the league.
you know, yeah, but these guys were not flashy by any means, and they were not big, high-profile names, but they lived and embodied Juventus, our values, what we stand for, and it showed on the pitch. Give everything. Now, now that feeling that many of us who have been labeled as something negative on social media, as far as a fan goes, not true supporters, but we've been calling it because the feeling has been getting stronger and stronger, but we are becoming soulless. And
That's true.
this Coppa Italia, whether you want to call us negative or not true supporters, whatever, that was a soulless performance, completely soulless. And
Absolutely.
and that is highlighted by management. Okay, that is a management thing 100%. And before we even get to sorry or anything like that, management needs to take a long look in the mirror. Agnelli needs to take a long look in the mirror, because I really don't give a shit about fucking locker room edition shirts and all this shit if that's what you're going to put out on the pitch on a regular basis. It's time to get back to being who we are. Stop running us through the mud and giving us this embarrassing shit and signing these players that have no business wearing the goddamn shirt. You want to sell these fucking locker room shirts? Start respecting it again and treating it
That's
properly
true.
in the way it needs to be. Step it up. Management needs to step it up. Stop linking us. I don't want to hear the likes of Pedro, Willian, like looking to join Juventus, for Christ's sake. Now we have young Italian studs starting to come up, and they don't even want to come to Juve. You know, they don't even want to come to Juve. If what goes down with Sandro Tonali is true, you know, it's crazy. Let's look at, you know, even Alessandro Del Piero. This is a slap in the face, he said. It's a slap in the face.
It is. It is. It is.
And it is. But that what he's saying is not just about on the pitch, you know. It's a
Absolutely.
it's a slap in the face. The players, it's a slap in the face to Juventus as a whole, because he knows that guy knows more than anything that there are issues, and he said there are problems there for sure. All we can do is hope that the guys rally, you know, and that they use this as this turnaround to push through for the rest of the season. But I really, really have my doubts. And I'm going to share something with you that I want to get your thoughts on, Mustafa. And this goes back to the question you raised earlier when you were starting to talk about the players. And are these guys, you know, worthy of wearing the shirts? Are they really, really there and into it for Juve? But my question to you is, if you were a player on Juventus, like, how on earth could you have faith in the management at this point? And I'm going to bring up this again because I just got into on this little rant I'm on, but Paulo Dybala, you have a key guy, a guy that wears the captain armband. He's one of the alternative captains, one of the alternate captains. And we try to push him out. And then you have guys that have produced nothing, that make good wages, that we are happy to keep on and do anything
And
like that.
we're racing to renew. We're racing to renew them every time, you know?
If I'm a player on this team, okay, it's no different than a place of work. If you're looking at management, you are producing, you know, you may have an off period. Dybala did that season. But, you know, if you see these guys that are not producing, but all of a sudden you want to take a key cog, someone you should be building around, which, mind you, we have always tried to fit Paolo in rather than take this jewel and build around him. We've always been like, oh, can we fit him here? Can we slot him here? Can we fit him here? You know where he fits, okay? And this is the part that bothers me about how Juventus builds teams is we are no longer building teams. We are filling roster spots. But how on earth, as a player, could you have faith in your management when they want to throw away a key cog? And this is why I'm starting to feel like there is a growing separation from these players and Juve and what it's about based on how our management team is handling scenarios, situations. And I want to get your thoughts on that.
And you hit the point on the nail, and the easy answer is absolutely not. And I think this links to the whole changes that has been happening since we moved from Juventus to J-Corp. And the whole direction that the club has been pursuing for the last years. Okay, let me get this straight. I'm not an idealistic person in that sense that I understand that to stay relevant, you need to change somehow in some ways. So I understand that they are trying to, I don't know, they're trying to have some sort of a business model that gives them some flexibility in terms of, not becoming a brand, but becoming, more of an attractive, kind of, actually becoming kind of a brand. And I understand that you have to change with the times, because I remember once I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter, I don't remember who, and I was telling him that the club doesn't care anymore about the traditional fans. And he told me, absolutely yes, and tell me this is a business truth. You don't care about the current client, you care about the future client. You care about attracting the other client, because the client that you have is already there and he is already loyal to you. So you don't really, when you are doing direction, when you're doing strategic and market and direction to attract your brand, you go for those who are not yet part of it, because you want to expand and you want to grow. But this is the issue, Alberto, and you are absolutely right. And I don't know if I could say anything better than what you said, because you put it correctly. When you treat a football club with the particularity of Juventus, the very unique identity of that club, which is a family club, which is a club about certain values that have been ingrained in this club for more than 100 years, because Juventus is since the 19th century. And you take all of that, you throw it out of the window, and then you want to create a new model based on whatever business direction that you have in mind. Yeah, okay, you might make some money outside in the bank. You can sell some shirts, you can have some more sponsorship deals and so on. But what happens is that you lose your identity. You are no longer the same. You are no longer the same. You can no longer live with the same ideals of that club. And when you lose your identity, you become a club without a foundation. And this is the problem that I believe Agnelli and Paratici, in the end, Paratici is an employee for Agnelli. Paratici is responsible for sporting, and we can talk about the wrong sporting directions of Paratici in terms of selling players, buying players, in terms of selecting coaches. All that we can talk about. That's football. However, my main concern as a fan of this club, and I'm considered myself an old-fashioned fan of that club, because I grew up with the club in the older days, which was completely different, is that this is my main fear, or my main concern, or the thing that is very difficult for me to understand is how we are letting go of the very identity that made us Juventus. And we are talking about things that are it just, things that they might seem small, but if they happened 10, 15 years ago or more, they would have never been tolerated. Like, for example, when we lost to Napoli, and then he came and he said, I'm happy for Napoli that they won. 20 years ago, this guy would have left, this would not have tolerated, this would not have passed, because in the culture, I mean, again, I understand Sarri is from Napoli, and I mean, my girlfriend is from Napoli. I understand. Obviously, there might be some attachment. However, you are a professional coach, and you are coaching a club like Juventus. You do not say that. You just don't say that. You cannot say these statements. And the idea is that even if he made a mistake and said that statements, there was no reaction whatsoever. That it's normal. It is fine. And then again, you see what is happening. All this fucking as you were saying, excuse my language, locker room T-shirt, the designs of the kits, the change of the logo, the whole. We are becoming a corporation. We are becoming a corporation, and this is the problem. I understand. Okay, football is a business. Again, I don't want to be an idealist. Football is a business, and if you are not losing, if you are not making money, you will lose on the pitch. I understand that, but this has always been the case for years. And there are other examples in world football of clubs who are running a very successful business venture and more popular than us, making more money than us. However, they know very well. And they know very well. I mean, I don't know if you were watching recently the documentary of Michael Jordan, The Last Dance. When they were telling him about the sponsorships and the money and the merchandise, everything that was coming to him, he said, "Yeah, when I was playing, I separated myself from all of that because I knew that the moment I stop performing when it matters, that I don't deliver on the court, all that will disappear, all that will go away. Because the moment that I lose what I'm doing when it matters most, which is on the court, I'm going to be all that will disappear. This will not stay forever, and this is the problem that is happening." You are becoming a club without an identity because you are letting go of your original identity for whatever business venture you have. And at the same time, you are forgetting what matters most. And what matters most is what's happening on the football pitch, what's happening. And this is something that is mind-boggling because you want to be, we agree that Allegri had to go, we agree that it was the end of his cycle. But then you get a coach that's not making you play better. You're playing worse. You don't have the players. I mean, again, it's a whole cycle. It's all interlinked.
Yes.
It is all interlinked. It's all a cycle. You are making wrong football choices, which will in the end hurt your brand that you are doing all these investments and all that stuff to get. I mean, okay, again, you are trying to attract younger fans in South Korea to be Juventus fans. Why the hell are they going to support a club that plays this kind of football, that treats his players like garbage? We're going to speak about players now because there is a man that was treated like garbage and he was thrown away for no reason. And this is biting us on the ass now. This is Mario Mandzukic. Mario Mandzukic, one day he needs to be corrected because he was treated like garbage.
I'm glad you bring this up and stuff. And now, while I understand why, like I kind of could understand why they would whatnot, and players, coming in, not seeing them used and whatnot. But the problem I have is how it all unfolds. Marquisio, this goes back to Marquisio and the way Marquisio was pushed out. A guy that would gladly take a pay cut if he had to, be that option on the bench. Marquisio wasn't going to raise a fuss if he was on the bench. Like, that guy lives and breathes Juventus still.
He retired from his love for Juventus. What more?
Yeah, he's incredible. And to do that, this is what I mean. How are you going to get these guys to care, to buy in to Juve and what it means to be Juve when you yourself treat them like that? And then in turn, you're asking, for them to kill themselves in battle to win you these trophies, to get all this. You're just not going to get that when you just don't give a shit about them. You're not going to get that. And these things, while seeming insignificant in the grand scheme of things, because, you know, they do play part. They absolutely do play a part. And when players start to see this, and again, we are all different as human beings. No, not all of us look at things the same. But the thing is, when you're talking about a team, you're talking about a collective group, you are only as strong as your weakest link. Now, taking all this into effect, when something like this starts to happen, you have Marquisio pushed out. You have tensions with Allegri, Dybala, whatnot. Then you have a summer where Dybala is trying to be pushed out and sold. All this, it only takes one or maybe two of these personalities amongst this team to start raising this doubt about Juve and how they treat us.
And the club doesn't care. And the club
They'll see
doesn't care.
themselves as us, the players, the team. And once you have that, it could spiral out of control. And you know what? Then all of a sudden you factor in a new coach, and we know that he's got the man management issues. He couldn't get a 19-year-old goalkeeper to take a substitution, for Christ's sake, in front of national television, and the whole thing turned into a debacle. And honestly, like, it was sad. It was sad to see. I was embarrassed for Sarri. I truly.
I'm embarrassed for him, man. Like a 60-year-old guy getting embarrassed by a 19-year-old. I mean, it's like a father, you know.
It's embarrassing, you know, and I can't help but think, if he can't handle like that kid, he can't handle that. How on earth is he going to do it at Juve with a payroll of whatever astronomical number it is, and these guys that have these incredible wages, you know? And again, now we get into wages, like rewarding. And here's another part about managing, okay? And this goes into Sarri as well as it goes into Agnelli and Paratici and whatnot. But, you know, the biggest thing in management, coaching, anything, you never, ever give recognition or any type of positive affirmation for habits and or activities that you don't want to happen. Okay? You just you don't do it. These contract extensions are rewarding complacency. They're rewarding subpar. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you are essentially enabling. You are enabling this standard to be accepted, you know, where your game is starting to slip, you're starting to decline, but we are going to extend you, you know. And it's just like, management has set this standard. They have made that acceptable at Juventus, whereas many of us fans know it's never been acceptable to do that. If you are not cutting it, it doesn't matter if your name is freaking Maradona. It should never be acceptable at Juve. You give what you got to do. You know what I mean? You have to give to the cause. You have to be producing, or you don't see the pitch. And that's the way it needs to be, but we are losing it.
I mean, you had the biggest names in world football, and they always respected the name and knew that the club is bigger than them, bigger than the name. And this links a little bit now to also the kind of, I mean, social media really can give you good stuff, but it can give you lots of crap as well about the people. I was saying Ronaldo fans versus Juventus fans, and Ronaldo fans are defending Ronaldo with his, which for me is another meaningless conversation, because any real Juventus fan is not undermining the value of Cristiano Ronaldo. But Cristiano Ronaldo is not bigger than Juventus, and they need to understand that. I know he's a great player, one of the greatest 3, 4, 5 players who ever played the game. However, he is a member of a team. He is a player in the team. He is a member. He is not bigger than the club. And when he plays badly, he will be criticized for his bad form. When he plays good, he will be applauded. And we are the first one to applaud him when he plays well.
Yes, all players need to be held to the same standard.
Exactly.
That's what we're losing. You know, I use Maradona as an example just because at Juve, I grew up like it didn't matter who you were. You had the expectations and you needed to meet them. Management has created this subpar standard. Okay, they have created that. They have created that with the contract extensions that they're given. You know, not only that, but touching on what you're mentioning with Mandzukic and the way it was handled was terrible. I understood it, but the way it was created was terrible. But another situation where, as a player, why would you give a shit about Juventus when they do this to a guy that was very, very highly respected in the locker room, you know? And they did this to Marquisio, you know, he is the Stripes. He was one of those guys, and you treated him like that. And it's like, how the hell can I take you guys seriously as a player? You know, when you're it's
This is the problem.
all connected. And that's why I say when this whole thing started and I got fired up, I was already pissed off we lost the match, but then I start hearing this Allegri versus Sarri thing, and Allegri would have won this. Bring us back, Allegri. He is part of where we are now because he as well, you know, you might want to. And then somebody argued to me, well, it's not a pointless discussion. I said, well, yeah, it is, because number one, he's gone, and number two, the decline began under his watch.
Absolutely. Him and along with the management, obviously, both of them, they have a lot of the cost.
As a manager, you work with the pieces you're given, but it is also part of your job to recognize what you need to get into that next step. Okay. Now, some fans want to say, oh yeah, Allegri was asking for this, Allegri was asking for that. I'm not so sure about that. And I feel almost like he might have been a yes man, just because I never heard of Allegri specifically asking for anything until this past season, where he wanted to do this revolution. And I go, well, that's the first time I've ever heard any type of link with Allegri looking for somebody. And again, all interconnected. If you are management like Agnelli and co, why are you not getting a manager's input on players that you are trying to bring in? They should have been doing that naturally.
Absolutely.
If they're not, that's an entire different discussion, and that's a major, major issue.
And they are not. That's the hierarchy. The sporting director is the one who dictates the direction of the club in terms of transfers. It is, of course, he might have consultation with the coach. However, he has the final say.
Yeah,
this is a fact.
You know, so the thing is, they should be doing that. Position should be hand in hand. If it's not, that's a big, big problem. Because why on earth, as a manager, would you even continue say, hey, I need this, this, and this. This is where we should be looking at. And even if you're going to go out and get it, it's got to be to my standards. It's got to be somebody I kind of approve, want, or see the value in. So that's why I can't separate Allegri completely, because if you're trying to tell me that he wasn't in on any of it, I'm not buying that. Okay. Then the discussion changes. Well, it's just an appreciation for Allegri. I go, that's fine, but he still has his hands in this issue. Okay.
I appreciate Allegri and I like him, but absolutely, I completely agree with you. I mean, there's no denying.
The mentality, the style, the approach, the protected,
I tell you something, let's not go far away. I was in the stadium last year when we played against Ajax in the second game, the quarterfinal. It was the worst stadium experience of my entire life. And it was Allegri at the helm. And I mean, like, I saw a team not only lacking spirit, lacking anything. It was one of the worst matches I've ever seen in my whole life. And I remember sitting in the stadium. I swear to God, Alberto, from the first half, I knew we will lose the game because I didn't see anything on the pitch. I didn't see anything on the pitch, and this was Allegri. It was not Sarri. And again, I'm not taking a hit on Allegri. I like Allegri, and I met him a couple of times because his son trains where we play football, and he's a very decent man. However, he had his time, he had his cycle, and it was over. You never go back in time. You go forward and you see what. Again, my problem is not that they let him go. My problem is that the replacement. Was the replacement a better replacement or not? That is the question. And it is becoming evident that the replacement is not. Is not until now. We haven't seen anything.
Yeah. And
we haven't seen anything. It's ridiculous.
Is Juventus too much for Sarri? Are the expectations too much for him as a coach? And the thing that really hurts the most is I saw, him breaking down after the Coppa Italia. As a human being, it's hard not to feel the sympathy for this man. Knowing his story, starting from the bottom, just grinding his way to the top. But at the end of the day, emotions aside, he has a job to do. I don't know. The feelings are, everybody has their part into it, but I don't think I have my criticisms of Sarri, and I have my doubts whether he's the right guy for Juventus. However,
but I think it's a bigger problem. It's a bigger problem.
The problem is much, much bigger than Sarri. That's the thing that everybody needs to understand, is that this runs deep, this issue.
I also don't want to be harsh on him. And like you, I also saw that, and I think he's a good man as well. He's a good person. His story is remarkable, and this is why I really wanted him to succeed. Even if I was not particularly willing that he comes to the Juventus, but when he became the coach, I really wanted him to succeed because he seems like a decent man. And I'm against, because people sometimes, because Alberto, there is a very thin line between constructive criticism and between insult. And people, unfortunately, they do not know the difference between this, and they cross the line and they insult the man. And this is unacceptable. You can constructively criticize his style, his philosophy, his strategies, his statements, because this is constructive criticism. However, insulting the man and hate and all that stuff, I'm against all that stuff completely. And I agree with you that it is a bigger problem than him. And this is obvious, but again, as you know, with complex structures, you always see what is the easiest thing that you can change to make things better. And that, I think, Alberto, let's be honest, and we don't fool ourselves. This is the direction of the club, whether we like it or not. The club will continue to pursue as long as Agnelli is at the head. As long as Agnelli is at the helm, and this is his direction. We spoke about that. I understand the financial perspective. However, there is a problem that he is neglecting the other side of the equation, which is incredibly important. It's as important, which is what's happening on the pitch. And I gave you an example. with United. When we spoke last time. United, everybody remembers the United of the 90s and the 2000s and so on. United is still a financial powerhouse, however, on the pitch. Whereas United for the last years, nothing. And they are losing their attractiveness. Players are now top players. They don't go to United. They are preferring other options, albeit Madrid, Bayern, Barcelona. They are choosing other options, and they lost their attractiveness and their appeal because they pushed for business and they forgot what matters most, which is what happens on the pitch. And I'm afraid that we are going in a similar direction. That we are pushing, and you are seeing like a kid like Tonali who automatically should do everything to come to Juventus, and now he's willingly choosing to go to our eternal rival. So this is very alarming, is that once you lose your attractiveness to get the players that you are really looking for, what remains? This is the question. You are not going to sell shirts. You are not going to sell shirts Agnelli when you are forgetting what's happening when it matters, where it matters most. And this is the fundamental issue here. You can very easily blame a manager. You can blame a player, which is true, and they should be blamed. However, at the same time, this is interlinked to a direction the club is pursuing that is alarming and worrying for fans like us who believe that Juventus is losing something that is much, much more valuable than money, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And this is the worrying part, and this is the sad part, is that when we are seeing this on the pitch, players without spirit, players without heart, lacking direction, players who, and at the same time, those who are complacent and let's say not doing much are getting rewarded, who are those who are loyal, those who are giving everything, they are not getting rewarded. Khedira is making 2 or 3 times what Bentancur is making. And there are other examples. Rabiot is making 9 million, Bentancur is not even making 3 million a year. So again, this is again, you were talking about that rewarding. Who are you? Again, it is really, I mean, we can speak about that for hours and hours and the time is limited. But really, this is the frustrating point, and this is why, in Alex's words, this is a slap on the face. And this is why we long for the times of Gigi Buffon. And this is why Gigi Buffon is the last remaining link to what we are, as classic fans, to what we are imagining Juventus to be, or what we are, or our idea of that club. He is the last remaining link of that. And this is the sad part, is that in a couple of years, when Gigi retires, when Chiellini retires, when these players, who will remain? Who will remain? Who will remain? Who will understand this coach?
And that's just it, right? You know, the issues run deep. The thing is that Agnelli needs to realize this before we get to a scenario where it's so hard. And we're already seeing this with players. You know, nobody could foresee the pandemic happening or whatnot, but we have so much cleanup to do in terms of roster, you know, and personnel. There is so much cleanup to do. It's not going to happen this Mercado, you know. But then the issue lies, you know, are we even going to, are we ever going to get to a point where we clean up, because they still want to reward this complacency and give these extensions out and just, again, um, reward this subpar that just it's not lining up, you know. Everything needs to make sense, and it hasn't for a while. And this is why I say people bringing up Allegri, it's pointless, because these issues have been coming up for a while, you know, and it's every level. It's players, it's coach, it's management, it's all every level. Okay, management talks about wanting to be part of the Giants, you know, hell, Agnelli's trying to talk about a super league or whatnot. And I'm like, you don't have a roster equipped for Coppa Italia, let alone like now you want to just play these Giants day in, day out. No. Okay. Like, no. You need to figure this out and get it right again. I don't know if the reign, you know, of this streak of domestic dominance has essentially blinded them, you know, and allowed them to think that now we can conquer Europe, you know, like let's push brand and whatnot, like we're here, like, and they just took it for granted. But I can't really speak to it, but this has been something happening for a while, and it's been growing more and more and more, and they need to shut it down. They need to get it right. But the players, the transfers that we make, it needs to make sense. You know, a style of play. We need to, now we've got Sarri, you know, but here's the big thing, you know, because now all of a sudden the reports do come out. You know, Agnelli's annoyed, super frustrated, whatnot, but it still did say in the report that he's going to keep Sarri. But then now you hear conflicting reports that say, should Sarri, you know, depending what happens this next month and a half with Serie A, and then going into Champions League the next month, these 2 months essentially hold his future at Juventus. And to me, I don't know, while I have my criticisms of Sarri, we get into this battle on what you and I were discussing, Mustafa, because you know it's very dangerous. And it's not easy. Your heart tells you, and your mind kind of tells you, we get back into enabling subpar scenarios and setting a standard. If we go trophyless, you can't set that standard. You can't.
You can't.
It is completely unacceptable. However, when you talk about a team, building a team, we would have to again start from scratch, again try to figure out some type of gameplay or formation, whatever that we want to go with in the future in order to actually attack the market properly. So you really run this fine line. However, when I look at it in my mind, it's only one season, and he really hasn't set anything in.
Anything. There is nothing promising. I mean,
So for me, if we go trophyless, you cannot set that standard at Juventus, and it starts there, and you need to.
it's downhill, and then it's downhill. And especially look, because I had this conversation with Rav, and Rav is one of my best friends on that world, and we were talking about Sarri, and I mean, we have different opinions because he sees that. I mean, he's saying if there is not a better choice, if there is not a better option, then I'd rather maintain and try to go again. But I disagree respectfully, and I think that it would be a very dangerous precedent, and a downhill point if. Let me ask you something. Would you really be even able to look at that guy's face if we couldn't beat Lyon, for example? I mean, it's some things. I mean, again, it is just some things they just don't happen at Juventus. We are not Arsenal. Sorry, with all due respect to Arsenal fans and other teams that have been on a downhill for a very long time, just winning, minor competitions or FA Cups or whatever. This is not us. And again, I mean, really no offense because they're all great clubs and everything. However, we cannot be like that. And I believe that. I mean, I cannot see Alberto. I cannot see a scenario that this guy loses to Lyon and loses the league and remains. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, okay, if he goes to a deeper run in the UCL and then we lose to a better team, because there are better teams than us in Europe, more molded, more ready to win. This I understand, but you bottle the league and you are unable to beat a team like Lyon, for example. There's no way. I mean, we need to see something that shows you that, okay, maybe we'll give him another chance. I haven't seen that for the whole year. Forget Corona. All the other teams had to go through the Corona. All the Barcelonas of the world and the Madrids of the world and so on. You saw Madrid yesterday beating Valencia 3-0 and playing a great game. I mean, again, it is the same. They all had the same circumstances, but they hit the ground running because there is a philosophy, there is an identity. Yes. We are still searching for an identity after almost a year.
We have a serious problem. It's a serious problem.
Absolutely.
I've read, posts. I've seen posts where they're saying everyone's just needs to calm down. You're just being reactionary. We'll get it right in a couple. But this, again, these are issues that run deep and they are trickling down. They're just trickling down through Juventus, and they got to get it right. And honestly, I don't know, because it doesn't look like it just doesn't look like that focus is on, again, building teams sensibly, transfers that make sense based on what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to go through, and when you talk about it, these, again, it really pisses me off that people brought up Allegri and whatnot, because, again, holding people to a standard, when you dominate in domestically, naturally, the next step is we need to start taking Europe. We need to get that title because, again, always improving, always progressing, always naturally growing, building. And when that doesn't happen, the cycle ends and it's time to change, and it's time to take that next step, because ultimately, if you're not taking that next step, what are you doing? There's no growth, there's no, you become stagnant, and then eventually
You fall.
exactly, you start to go backwards. So to say that we would have, it just frustrates me because it's an assumption. It's an assumption to say, well, if Allegri was here, we would have won that Coppa Italia.
This is
That is an
bullshit.
assumption.
Yeah, this is bullshit. Yeah, because it had nothing to do with him.
It's an assumption. And I got into this battle, and he's saying that's not an assumption. I go, no, actually, it really is. That is an assumption. That's like me assuming if Sarri would have started when Max did, we would have had a Champions League by now. That is an assumption. I go, these are just assumptions. And anyways, that argument became more me teaching him what an assumption was, and it was useless. But again, bring up Allegri. He plays his part in it. Everybody's involved. The players are not innocent in all this, and they need to really, really take a long look in the mirror. And when Del Piero tells you it's a slap in the face, it's time to get your act together. And yeah, you need to. Ronaldo getting called out, very, very subpar from him. We want to hear stories and reports from media about his epic training and whatnot, and coming back with all his speed. Well, I haven't even seen it.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
actually looks slow. He looks slow.
I
And I'm
know.
like, what's going on here? Now he really looks like he can't take somebody on a 1v1. But it's all got to come together, and it just isn't. And there's something there. Even sorry, like, if he can't get these players to buy in, like we talk about Buffon and them extending him for a year, like right now in this scenario, what we're going through, that is like an absolute must.
No,
Anybody
absolutely.
anybody that bleeds black and white like that needs to be around this club right now, because we are fragile. We are fragile on the pitch, and we are in jeopardy of truly losing anything and everything that is Juve, like, as an identity goes. We are hanging on by a thread, and that thread is simply the mottos. But now it's time to actually live those through. I hope Agnelli and co can right the ship and start getting it right with transfers, start developing a new business model, because what they've been doing is poor business. It's
Absolutely.
poor business, and they are enabling substandards to survive at a club that has never accepted that. And
This will yield nothing, and will attract nothing.
exactly, it's time to flip the script. We need to go around and get it right. It's going to start with Bologna, but now we talk about Khedira's out, Sandro's out 3 weeks. What are we going to do? Is it going to be DeCilio sliding over to the left? Probably. Your other option is Matuidi, because you're going to need a right back, Quadrado. This depth, I'm not seeing it.
It's laughable. No,
And
our
that
depth is
should
laughable.
and that should not happen. Again, it should not happen at a club that makes the kind of revenue that Juventus does. To have a bench worth of players that is useless blows my mind. To make a sub, I laughed about this against Milan. You make a sub, 3 players all at once, 2 midfielders and 1 attacking mid/forward, Bernardeschi, with none of them providing 1 goal. We must be the only giant that could make a sub with 3 players, 2 midfielders and an attacking mid-forward, that haven't got a goal.
It's tragic. It's tragic, man.
Exactly. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. So when we want to talk about, and look at the salaries. Rabiot is at 7 with bonuses 9 million. Hasn't got a goal or an assist. I've contributed more from British Columbia, Canada. Okay? It's crazy. This should not happen at Juve. This should not be acceptable. We cannot allow these standards to continue. When Bernardeschi's contract was talking about being extended, absolutely not. You have not met our standards, and we are moving on. Start to get that precedent set again. The old guys, you cannot keep them around and extend them beyond their years, because you will lose on those deals, and you will have a guy like Khedira who his body cannot do it anymore. He's physically unable to stay healthy. It is time for him to retire. However, when you give him a healthy $6 million annually, why on earth would he walk away from that? He will not, and you're setting yourself up for disaster. And there's a roster spot that we have lost because we have done it to ourselves. The standard needs to be brought up by management before it gets anywhere else.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing more to say. It's just, will they do that? I don't know. I mean, it's just that it's the jury is out, and we will see. But personally, I have zero expectations for this year, and I really, I'm not optimistic. Really, I have to say.
It starts with Bologna here, and Bologna's 10th in the table, so mid-table team. Yeah, what Juve is going to show up? You don't even know what to expect. But what are can we get it right? Can we protect the Scudetto, in your opinion? Are we going to at least finish off with the Scudetto? Do you think we have it in us? Do you think
these... It will depend on Lazio, not on us. It will depend on Lazio, not on us. It will depend on Lazio, not on us.
So you believe it's Lazio's to lose?
I believe for the last season in particular, and recently, we have been winning because we were the most consistent and we had the least slip-ups. So I think it will depend on Lazio blowing it up, to be honest. I mean, I think because Lazio are more informed, they are playing better football, they have more of a system, they have a coach that has been there for years. So it will depend on, first of all, how we respond after the slip-up. So first of all, how we respond in our first game and in our remaining games, but it will also depend on how much they will push us. Because if they slip up earlier, then we will just sail and we will win the league, not because we are playing fantastic football, just because we are more consistent. So I think it will depend more on Lazio if they manage to push us all the way, or if they slip up. And I think we have a game with them. I think we have a game that is in Turin. But anyway, there are no fans anyway, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, I think this game obviously is a key game, and it will have a big say in the overall. But everything starts with Bologna, Albert. Everything starts with Bologna. You need to react again, just to try to close on an optimistic note, because this has been a very long,
yes,
rightfully angry podcast. I think I think we find a way. I think there is something that makes us a little bit unique or special, is that when it matters most, we dig deep and we find something. Sometimes it might not be seen. Sometimes you don't see it coming, but we dig inside and we find something. I hope that will be the case. I mean, while I'm not optimistic, but I remain hopeful. So, I mean, I don't know. So we will see. It will really, everything starts on Monday. We will see which team will show up, and we will see if these people are really hungry, if it really matters for them, if it really matters, these colors and these fans, they matter or not. Because now it's really, the last run, it really is it shows the real material of these players, what they're made of. And obviously the jury is out for Sarri, and I completely believe if Sarri goes trophyless, I'm willing to take my chances with another manager, because it would set a precedent that is dangerous if we keep a coach, especially if he doesn't beat Lyon, because this will be another slap on the face, and too many slaps on the face will drive us crazy at some point. So I'm hopeful that we'll find a way, but the jury is out for the guy, and then his reaction and the player's reaction will determine many things.
Yeah, they all need to look in the mirror and get it right. And yeah, it does start with Bologna. Hopefully, we can do it. And I mean, this is all we're
Yeah,
hanging on to. We are hanging on to again that identity that Juve finds a way, pulls through, and does these things. But it's getting harder and harder to hang on to at the same time. So hopefully, they do use this as an eye opener. You know, we've heard the rumors of a new business model when it comes to salaries and what they're going to reward players and
yeah, I
whatnot.
heard
Be
about that. Yeah.
interesting. Be interesting to see how that relates to Dybala, who's going to be coming up in a contract section. It'd be interesting to see all of this unfold. But yeah, hopefully, because that's all we can do right now as Juventini is hope, remain as positive as possible that we will get this right, finish up Serie A strong, hopefully get that 9 straight, and then we move into a Champions League. Because if he could right the ship, you know, he has the benefit of finishing up that Serie A season
Absolutely.
to make those adjustments, get things right, and then try and recover that poor performance against Lyon. And then who knows in that
He will restore. His fate is in his hands.
yeah.
As you're saying, if he manages to do that, he will restore the confidence of many people.
And the players themselves can redeem themselves and whatnot. So there is still time. There's a lot of time. This season, as crazy as the emotions and what the recent scenario has highlighted, this season still could potentially be a very successful one. Okay, and even if we're talking about bringing in Sarri, even, you know, Champions League is not a given. It's not like Sarri was going to come, we're going to win Champions League. But losing the Coppa
Absolutely.
Italia, we lost the Coppa Italia last week. If we make a transition to Sarri, you know, and we get a Mercado with him and he still has maintained the Scudetto, I would still possibly see that as a successful year in a transitional year.
Yeah,
And maybe we
absolutely.
could start building these players with them. So keep in mind, you know, all the emotions that we're feeling, everything we're bringing up about the club this season could still be a successful one.
It's
And
not over yet. It's
it's
not
not
over
over
yet.
yet. So all we can do is simply live that motto, fino alla fine,
To the
hope for
end.
the best. Let's see what the guys can do. Let's back them and let's go. But there is work to do starting from the top. Mustafa, thank you so much. This has been a great episode as far as just diving really into the roots of everything. I've always respected your opinions when it comes to football and whatnot. It's an absolute pleasure
Thank
having
you.
you. And we will definitely do it again. But I'll be back for everybody listening. Thank you again. As always, thank you for all the support. Reached 3,200 followers on Twitter, and we're 300 away from another jersey giveaway. The retro ones, one of the retros, so that'll be coming up. And thank you for all the support with Striped Hearts. And that it's been overwhelming, which is incredible. Thank you. And proceeds, of course, go to charities. So thank you for everyone who's reached out and made some purchases and joined the Striped Hearts family. And yeah, we'll be back after Bologna, and hopefully we can start celebrating again and talking about.
Hopefully.
Let's get back on the right track. As always, till next time, Forza Juve, fino alla fine. Ciao.